The diner was called Lowland's Grill. It was run by an old Irish fellow named Gregory, who spent most of his time in the back, his hand on a spatula and his other on a bottle, be it of alcohol, ketchup, or both, because his hands were always full, and he only emptied his hands to hug a friend who came to visit. Such was the case when Kim walked in the front door. The hostess looked up at her, and then smiled. "Hey, Greg, it's the cops," she called. Gregory stuck his head out, surprised, and then burst into a smile. "Detective Min Seo!" he cried. Kim waved and smiled back. "Hey, Greg." "Ha, ha, ha! Hold on a sec, lass. Oi! Oi, Paul! Your man in the kitchen!" he shouted, and then hurried out to see Kim. She opened her arms, knowing Gregory loved hugs for his friends. The two embraced, and Kim was overwhelmed by the sheer power of his hug and the smell of grease and meat. His unshaven face seemed to part as he smiled at her. "Ah, you're a sight for sore tired eyes, lass. Where you been?" he asked. "I only saw you 3 weeks ago, Greg." "That's too long, lass," he scoffed. "Come, have a seat. Let's talk." With a nod, Kim joined Gregory in a nearby booth. As the large man sat down, he adjusted himself and then waved to a waitress walking by. "2 drafts, Anna." "You got it." "I'm on the job, Greg. I can't drink." Kim laughed. "Then I'll have 2 for myself. You're not near as fun as you used to be," he grinned. "Now, how have you been?" Gregory asked. Kim sighed and shook her head. "Like I said, I'm working, Greg. I don't have much time. Sorry. I actually came to ask you a few questions." "Well, I'm not in trouble, am I?" "No. I've been assigned the Dracula killer case," Kim replied. Greg's face reacted the way she thought it would. It went from grave to horrified. Cold sweat seemed to take him as he shivered softly. "You're chasing that killer?" "No, Kim, you need to get out of that." "I have a job to do, Greg." "What are you trying to prove getting killed by a damn vampire?" he snapped. "Are you seriously that superstitious, Greg?" "I never thought you'd fall for that kind of thing." Greg didn't smile. "Healthy superstition can keep a man alive and happy a lot longer," he challenged. "Look, Greg," she finally sighed, leaning forward and whispering, "this bar's pretty busy, and I know you hear things. I also know that a couple of folks come through here from time to time with things they probably shouldn't. Now, your hands are clean and all that. I know that, so I never make a stink for you. But occasionally, it's nice to get a little help now and again. So, I won't make you, but I want to know if you've heard anything I can use. Some kind of lead. The guys, the chief, they just don't have anything. We don't have any real direction. We need something to latch onto, and I thought, if there's anyone in this whole city who might know something, it's a man with his ear to the ground. And that's you, Greg." Greg fidgeted a little and grunted unhappily. There was a slight twitching at the corner of his mouth because he was trying to hide his smile. He was always a sucker for flattery. "You're a sweet lass, Kim. Not like your brother." "Please don't bring my brother into this," she grumbled. "He's the last person I want to talk about." "Is that why you're on this case? Because of him?" "God, I hope not. The chief says it's not because of him, but, who can say?" Kim admitted. "But enough about that. Will you help me?" Greg tapped his fingers on the table nervously and then finally pointed over his shoulder. "You see that bloke sitting at the bar? He has a bandana on and a leather biker jacket?" he asked. Kim looked behind him and saw the man in question. He had filthy black hair and a scar under his jaw. He looked mean, nasty. He had the look of a man who'd probably killed before and gotten away with it. Kim sure didn't like the look, but there was more to him than that. There was something under the surface. A cold and calculated sneer to his aura. "What? You think he's the killer?" "Hell no," Greg snapped. "It's the middle of the day, and everyone knows vampires don't walk around in sunlight." "Oh, Greg, but," he interjected, "he's part of a biker gang called the City Wolves. And sometimes when he comes in, he mentions the Dracula killer, once or twice perhaps. And he claimed he knew the killer's favorite hideouts." "And where were they?" "I didn't ask, because I don't want to know. I just want to stay out of that bunch. The City Wolves are, well, let's say they're not reputable people," he grumbled. "Then why even serve them here, Greg?" "It's not my place to throw out a paying customer. Plus, I don't want him and his boys coming back for blood." "Then maybe I should talk to him." "Kim," Greg growled, taking her hand. "You're a brave lass, and that's a good thing. But you're getting well over your head. Don't bother the bloke. What you do is you go back to your chief and say you want off this case. Take a murder case, a cold case, a theft, but don't go chasing demons, lass, because you're bound to chase them straight to hell. Thanks, Greg, but this is my job, Kim replied, getting up and walking to the frightening biker at the bar. Excuse me, sir, she called. The biker turned his head to her and his blue eyes lit up with a hungry lust. He leaned back in his chair and smirked. Ooh-wee! Well, what have we got here? You coming over here for little old me? I'd like to ask you a few questions, sir. Oh, well, I like questions, but I'll save you the trouble, ma'am. I'm great in the sack. I'm available whenever you want, and you are definitely my type. I like some of that Asian persuasion, if you know what I'm saying. That answer all your questions? Hardly, Kim grumbled, pulling out her shield, flashing it in front of the punk. He just whistled. I'm a detective. Detective Kim Min Seo. Oh, this just keeps getting better. Well, you can handcuff me anytime you like, detective. I won't resist. Well, maybe a little. Cute. And your name? Call me Ricky, sweetheart. I heard word that you know something about the Dracula killer. At this, the biker let out a barking laugh and slammed his fist on the counter, shaking his head. Don't tell me you're chasing that Looney Tune. Come on, honey. There's way better cases for you to crack. Maybe you could, try cracking mine. Maybe another time, Kim pushed. Listen, see, it's my job. And if you know anything about the Dracula killer, it would help me and my task force arrest him. Get him out of everyone's hair. Then, if he's out of my hair, maybe, I'd have more time for folks like you. Oh, you sure know how to make a guy feel wanted, he snickered. Fine. I don't know the guy. But, I know a place I've seen a lot of bats. Bats? Well, don't you know, detective? Vampires and bats go hand in hand. You call that a lead? Kim growled. You're wasting my time. Okay. He reached out and took her arm. Look. Honestly now. There's a place a few blocks away. I heard the Dracula killer was probably going to hit there. And how do I know I can trust you? Kim challenged. You were just spinning a load of crap a second ago. Look, I say things, all right? I'm a jokester, right? But look, the bloodsucker only hits rich elitist dudes and criminal dirtbags, right? That's his whole M.O., right? Well, there's this guy I know, right? Ever heard of Mike Barnes? Rich asshole, and he's infamous for rigging professional sporting events. Makes some of that nice money off the gamblers, right? Real mean son of a bitch. Well, frankly, between you and me, detective, no one would care if he got bumped off. Perfect target for the Dracula bastard, right? Kim raised an eyebrow but continued to listen. She knew about Barnes. There was more than a few active cases that had his name attached, and all of them had to do with the mob and gambling charges. Barnes would make a good target for Dracula, if he stuck to his pattern. Truth is, old Barnes been laying low lately. See, he's been reading the papers, watching the news. He's worried that old Count Dracula's coming for him next. Now, I know where he lives, and if you want, you can stake out the place with me, and we'll nab Tall, Dark, and Creepy together, Rick offered. What do you say? You're not police, and I'm not taking you with me to arrest him. But if what you say holds up, then I'll find some way to repay you. Ooh, I have a few ideas. Within reason, pig. Kim spat, regretting her promise immediately as Ricky howled with laughter. I like you, detective. You know what? I think I'll do you a solid. He turned and started to get up, swigging down his bottle in one gulp and slamming it back down, tossing a few dollars on the counter with it. Meet me at my place, 1941 Kurt Street. There's an alley there. Me and the guys drink and hang out. Just say you're looking for Ricky. I'll meet you there. Why not just tell me how to find Mike Barnes? Because I don't know where the fucker is myself, Ricky scoffed. I gotta do some sniffing around, doll. Don't worry. We'll find him for you. He grinned and walked past her, making sure to trace his fingers across his shoulder as he went. Later, babe. And don't worry. We're hot on his trail. Kim walked back over and sat down next to Greg, breathing heavily. You all right, Kim? Greg asked, hurrying over to collect the cash and check on her. Kim nodded in reply. Guy gave me the creeps. I told you not to get involved with him. But did he help you? He asked. He might have a lead on where Dracula will hit next. And I think I'll take it, Kim replied. I can't go alone, though. I'm not that stupid. I'll take some of the guys from the task force with me. Maybe that'll help keep Ricky's hands to himself. You know, Kim, lass, I know this ain't what you want to hear, but maybe Dracula's come for a reason. I've read his book, Greg. If this really is Dracula, then he's got no good reason for coming here, and that's for sure. And if he isn't Dracula, which we both know he isn't, then he's killing people and taking the law into his own hands, which is wrong either way, Kim responded. You say that now, lass, but stop and think a moment, okay? Don't you wish that Dracula would set his sights on Ricky? Greg teased. Kim stifled a giggle and shook her head. Point made, she laughed. Dogs like him really put me on edge. But I still have to trust him for this to work. 1941 Kurt Street, huh? Well, that ain't a pretty good part of town, Greg grumbled. Sure you don't want to call this off, lass? It ain't too late to pull out. Not a chance. I have to... Hey, Greg, phone for you, a waitress called. Greg smiled and pat Kim's shoulder encouragingly. I know. It's your job. Just stay safe, lass. You're one of the good cops out there, and I'd hate to lose you. You take care of yourself, Greg, Kim giggled as she started to walk to the door. Greg waved goodbye as he picked up the phone to see who was calling. She glanced back to see that his expression was still smiling, but there was a seriousness to it now. Ah, yes, Miss Lafano, pleasure as always. No, I don't know anything about... Oh, well, that's the thing, Mom. Kim closed the door behind her, waving off the uneasiness she saw in Greg's expression as he was on the phone. She made her way back to her car, but was actually more aware of the time of day. She checked her watch. It was now 6 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun would be setting. Kim had never feared the night, nor had she been scared of the dark. But as the shadows began to grow longer, and the day began to creep into evening, a shiver ran down her spine, and she double-checked the locks on her doors as she went to her apartment for the rest of the evening.